15 million millionaires in the world. There's not enough. There's not enough Bitcoin for all the millionaires in the world, and that's not including the billionaires, you guys. Whoa, if every millionaire in the world bought a Bitcoin, the price of BTC would be like this. That means like every Bitcoin would be equal $500 million at the time. And this was the consensus. This was the consensus across all of crypto. This was like gospel right here. Gospel, Bible. This is Bible, like this is Bible shit, like of the crypto space when it came to Bitcoin. You get that Bitcoin, you got the golden ticket, baby. You got the golden ticket. Pour no more. You will never, basically, and it's still true today in a way as well. We're if you look at it in a macro story, it just was a little early on, but that whole thing was actually, it's factually correct. Yeah, it is true. If BTC stays around for long enough and everything like that, and the price gets to the something crazy, if you have a BTC, you do have intergenerational wealth. But at the time, it was pushed to the nth degree, and it was this whole thing where, like, if we split up all of BTC equally, everyone around the world would have 0.008 or 0.0008% of a BTC. So if you get 10th of a Bitcoin at the time, bro, you're Gucci, basically. And this is the sort of stuff that happens, and like, I got imprinted to that, and so did a lot of other people. And this is what happens. There's this thing I call it cycle theory for myself. It's a working theory that I've had since about the first crypto mindset course that me and Charlie ever did, which was back in September of 2020. And basically how it goes is every single cycle has you have this upwards mobility that happens throughout the cycles. And this upward mobility that happens throughout the cycles, you end up, the people who win, right? It's this sort of thing where if you end up getting washed out, you're like, oh shit. So you end up having like this 80-20 principle on both sides. You have like 20% of the people at the bottom that get washed out because they get wrecked and like, screw this thing. 60% that kind of the next 20% kind of like, okay, I'll stick around during losses. Another 20% that kind of broke even and did pretty well. The other 20% that they made some money, and they stuck around. So you kind of have like this whole thing where like, you have 60% sticking around, 40%, 20% that'll just come back once everything really recovers and more. And then the bottom 20 that never comes back until they capitulate way later on, right? So, and then the top 20 that never leaves, which is most of you guys right here. You guys are in that top 20 percentile where like win, lose, or whatever, you guys are going to stick around, basically. And this is where like, so this is where like all that kind of Citadel talk started happening versus like ascending the Citadel. There's only so many BTC. If you have all these BTC here, essentially you can put off the peg and stuff like that. So this was kind of like, it actually was such a simplistic sort of time during that time. So during these kind of BTC cycles, because like obviously it really was just Bitcoin and a couple shit coins, really, especially back there. But I would really count the first real cycle for this macro story would be the kind of the 2013, 2015, 2016 sort of cycle, basically, where like BTC the first time it ever went to $1,000 and then took a shit. During that cycle, you're mostly a Bitcoiner, and then you had some of these guys who actually jumped in some of these like color coins, name coin, world coin, into some of these early on green coin, death coin, dark coin, all these different sort of like altcoins back in the day. And what happened was, if you look, right, people make money in the past. Like, so let's say if I made a bunch of money, if I made my money this cycle, the next cycle, you would get an evolution of that. And typically people who enter the crypto space are two cycle winners, basically, before they kind of get arbitraged out a little bit or just kind of bow out and aren't doing as much of that anymore. So it's a working theory of mine, but I believe it to be pretty true. So basically the reason we got a 2017 was because we got a 2013. So the guys who entered the space in 2013, they invested, they had a little bit of money, $20,000, $30,000. You had money in crypto back then. $20,000, $30,000. You started investing into these kind of like shitty altcoins. And what were they? They were just like, we're like the most simplistic thing, like Bitcoin with this and that, and like, we're going to change the world, or like this, we're going to be the cryptocurrency of trees, or like even more simplistic than that, and not even a website, barely like I'm talking about like Google Doc website, and maybe a white paper, and then like that's it, on like Bitcoin talk forums and stuff like that, you know, and those guys who won that 20%, 40% that won all the money from doing all that sort of stuff and bought BTC, what happened was with that is that they leveled up and they weren't up the upward mobility. So what did that happen by the next cycle? It was like, wow, I made so much money off those coins. How can I make more money in the next cycle? I'll start my own coin, right? That's what happened. And of course, and then you also have guys who sold BTC at a good price and then bought back in, right? So you have all that jazz. So you have the shitcoin cycle, the shitcoin side, and then you have the BTC side, which is still the larger part of the pie. But that 20, so I would say during the time it was 80% of the people were in BTC, 20% were in the altcoins. But the guys who won in the altcoins managed to make so much more gains and then put that back into Bitcoin, because in the whole story, the money was flowing back into BTC. Because it was just like it was a known fact that you buy altcoins to get gains to buy BTC. That was the game basically. And it's in the larger fact, it's evolved more into like BTC, maybe Ethereum. It's gone to other tribes, but at the end of the day, right? Like this is like kind of the beauty of it. At the end of the day, if the buck stopped here and there was this giant, like sort of huge economic crash, um, people would be like, you know what, I'm just gonna buy some BTC because it's the only thing I could think of that will survive long enough or something like that. And it's that sort of thing. So it really is the reserve asset, as well as there is assets right now that are proving themselves to this point and stuff like that. But so those guys from 2013 legitimately like upgraded themselves. And what did they do in the 2016, 2017 market? They decided to make their own tokens. And then Vitalik was one of these guys, and a bunch of other people, but basically people who kind of killed it in the earlier cycle took the money that they made it from that cycle, put it on to new projects, and then we had the evolution of what we had during 2017, which was actually, if you look at 2017 versus 2013, we actually improved. The projects actually improved up, except the problem was that like almost all the projects outside of maybe like I would say 10, 20 projects probably from that cycle outside of BTC and like Litecoin from the previous cycles were all vaporware. So essentially we went from like shitty like 2D art vaporware to like 3D art vaporware. Because you had the evolution of these guys who made projects that were vaporware. That was bullshit. So the 2013 guys, most of their shit was horse shit. And then basically what happened is the guys who won the games of the horse shit went to the next cycle in 2017 and make horse shit squared. So that's the reason why we got what we got. So we had we had Special Olympics flute like vaporware coins, super simplistic like super simplistic copy and paste coins with almost no changes at all other than the name. And then we actually had like we actually have a website, and we actually hired some Filipino man to write our white paper. Dude, they have a white paper. Whoa, they have a website. Oh my God, this is going to take over the world. Shout out DentaCoin. We are going to we're going to be the coin of all dentists around the world. It's because we're the guys who had made all the money in 2013. They learned all their stuff in 2013, 2012. So the guys who made all that money there, they just extrapolated out their ideas because they had more money, and they made better versions of what they saw during 2013. um, so it's pretty crazy. And then obviously during that time, now we had sort of a thing where